Coogs house. The Houston Cougars take down number 22 Auburn in Birmingham, Alabama, 73-72, and the freshmen Kingston, Flemings, and others lead the way.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougars, daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars, your victory Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether a Houston fan or just a hater came to step by, and I think there might be a few of you today, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen to the postgame, making Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in the world. If you want to comment, you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below. The most PG version of what you can say you said when that ball went out of bounds there at the end. Now, today's show is brought to you, who would it even brought to you? But today's show is brought to you by Game Time, which is actually great timing for Game Time. We'll bring more on that fun later. Great place to get in on the action this week with Houston hosting TCU in football. But my Lord, this is going to be a short, quick. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I can't not talk about Houston beating Auburn for a split second. We'll do more later. I actually have it queued up live for later tonight to breathe and talk about it more. Been some service stuff here today, but oh my goodness, Houston holds on to beat Auburn in thrilling fashion. I can't believe that went the way they did. I can believe Houston won. I was predicting Houston win a close one. I thought that the Road Warrior Cougs from last year would show up. I kind of thought the exact inverse of what would happen, or exact inverse of what happened would happen. I really thought the veteran leadership, all the continuity of those three returning starters from the team that got to the title game, that all that would be the thing that kind of carried Houston in this one. And instead, it was the freshmen. It was Kingston freaking Flemings. Kingston Flemings looks like a lottery pick in the NBA draft against Auburn, Alabama. And I just, oh man, like, the guys couldn't say it. He made some freshman mistakes on the stretch, and we will touch on those, but they couldn't stay in front of him. He took smart shots. He found guys with assists. He had a couple turnovers. He also had the ball in his hands so much. And he raised the question, I think, deservedly so, is this going to be his team? Is this going to be Kingston's group? And I think he's earned the right for it to be Kingston's group. Now, I say that knowing that Milos Uzan is probably also a pro guard right next to him. It would not be the first time we've seen a college basketball team have two pro guards in one backcourt. I think Emanuel Sharp's going to have a shot at himself. This is a talented group. But Kingston showed something different tonight. That just like, look, there's cojones and gusto, and there's just smart basketball. He managed to balance both of those very, very well. I think that you also want to talk about Chris Cenac having his highest scoring performance. And we talked earlier in the month, actually last week, about how Coach brought Chris Cenac out and called him the MVP of the team after a low-scoring performance. He had 13 rebounds, sure, but Cenac had done all of the right things. This was a game where he had 18 points and 9 rebounds and fouled out with only playing 26 minutes. You could almost say, with the exception of the fouls, Chris played pretty flawless basketball, right? This is where you saw the projection of Chris Cenac being that lottery pick in the NBA draft. This is where that game showed up against the best team they've played by leaps and bounds, and frankly, against other potential future pros in the front court of Auburn. I don't want to sell that team short at all, not just because Houston beat them. It helps. That team is a really talented team with a new coach and a lot of new players. And honestly, they figured some stuff out throughout the game. And I feel like, honestly, once they got there, Houston made their own freshman mistakes at the end, their new guy mistakes at the end. But once they got to the end, Auburn, I think, had kind of figured some stuff out. And yes, Keyshawn Hall still broke. He had 20. I was about to say broke. I guess he had exactly 20 for the sake of that argument. Yes, Tahaad Pettiford had his 15 points. I think it's more important, frankly, for Houston. They had him at 15 points and 14 shots, and he had just 1 assist. To me, that's a win defensively for Flemings and the defense covering covering up there. I guess Milos Uzan actually had the mark probably more often than not, but big day. You saw Houston play 9 guys in this one. Now, Emily Mercy did not play much. We found out before the game from Joseph Duarte that Cordell was not going to be able to go in this one. Houston went 9 deep, which is frankly more than I thought. I don't know if Tugler and Cenac had not been in foul trouble and if the Tigers had not been so big. I don't know how much Sacco plays. I know he had the block that won the game. When Pettiford drove down the lane there at the end, it is hard not to feel like that's it. Right? You're only up 1. That dude's prolific. He did it 2 years ago. He's done it in big games for them all the time since he's been there. And Sacco, who is not a freshman, did step up and make that play. And then Isaiah Harwell, we're talking about freshmen, right? Parker, Cornholio, I'm not sure what I'm going to say with that one. But Isaiah Harwell, we talked last week, came into this game, came into every game. He is not 100%. You can see him moving around. He is still coming back from major leg injuries and still working his way back and still like stiffens up at times. He looks good in the first few minutes and looks stiff in the next. Like it sitting still too long can hurt and all of that. I don't want to act like I know every single ounce of pain that guy's going through. That dude put 21 tough minutes out there for Houston with great defensive plays, a couple key rebounds, had his own 5 points, right? He's actually known as more of a scorer out of high school. This analyst talked about him as if he were Devin Booker. And I think injuries aside, he actually has that kind of a game, but we just haven't got to see him healthy yet. Man, what a freaking win for Houston. This is big. This is gigantic. And not just because we talked about in the preseason kind of stuff, and we talked again with Zach on Friday afternoon show. But if you say you were better than you were a year ago, and you went 35-5 and we're only 65 seconds from winning a national title, there's only so many chances you can really prove that. And this feels like that moment, right? This feels like a moment like that for Houston. Now, do they continue to build off of? We'll worry about that later. They continue to figure stuff out from this, where they have the seniors and upperclassmen involved. We'll figure that later. I really, though, feel like the shining light of the freshmen in this one showed how high that ceiling can go. Because truthfully, if you had a normal Houston Cougar freshman class, and those are some talented kids in a normal Houston Cougar freshman class, this game is a giant dud. You lay an egg in this one. Your upperclassmen couldn't get the ball in the basket. Jojo Tugler took good shots, 2 of 8, not good enough. Milos Uzan took good shots, mostly 4 of 11, not good enough. Emanuel Sharp, he's had some sharpshooting moments early, but he has not had a Emanuel Sharp feeling game shooting the basketball yet. 2 of 7 from 3. If he makes 2 more of those and goes 4 of 7 and it's hot like he's supposed to be in these kind of games, and we saw him be in last February and March in these kind of games, this game is never close, right? However, it was, and in those close moments, you were worried about your freshman. People were asking, think about it this way. It's the end of the game. Kingston Flemings has the ball. You have Emanuel Sharp, who was player of the region in the Midwest region last year, and Milos Uzan, player of the tournament, the Big 12 tournament last year, as the other 2 guards on the floor. That's your backcourt. And the entire world is telling Kingston not to pass the basketball. And frankly, he probably shouldn't have. Otherwise, things it tells us a lot of, like, his initial reaction is, okay, I'm going to kick the ball to Emmanuel. He's going to knock down a 3 here. That trust is great. I don't mean to say that that's not. But in that moment, what Kingston's going to learn in video is you got the matchup. You got the hot hand. You got 22 points on 13 shots. Go punch this thing through and take it home. And I'm confident that he'll do that later. I'm confident Houston's going to grow from this. And I'm so relieved. Relief because Houston built up a lead. You had guys foul out. It got dicey. But as Daniel says here at the end, cardiac Cougs, man. Cardiac Cougs come through. Now, I want to talk about why this is a little bit different post-game kind of day. I want to thank you for coming in for just 1 second. But before we get too far, I should point out that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Game Time, because Game Time is the best place to get lounge tickets at the lowest prices, guaranteed. College football is wrapping up. Couldn't be more excited about tailgates, rivalries, TCU coming through this weekend. There's just nothing like it. But if we're being real, sometimes getting tickets can be challenging, or getting the right tickets can be challenging. That's why Game Time is the best place to get tickets. Advantage goes back to the fans with Game Time. It's the easiest place to score last minute tickets, the lowest prices, no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Game Time, you go in, you can find tickets for less than $30 a pop in the lower bowl for Houston and TCU. Get a great seat. Wish these seniors out on a high note. It is a big-time season. Houston's 8-2. We're going to get 10 wins. 10 wins. Can they do that? Can you be in the stadium when it happens? Go to Game Time and get in on that action. Take this credit buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Parker Ainsworth locked on Coogs. And I mentioned this is a weird, awkward post game. I'm too excited not to talk about it. Daniel's pointing out, though, to go to a tailgate for $15. I can eat and drink at that tailgate. So go hit him up for that. Find Danny in the comments for fun there. BYU's football did get screwed. Someone said that down at the bottom. It is a good day to be a Cougar, as Kenneth points out. Now, I've been at service stuff all day. I'm stopped in a room here to talk to you for a second. We'll go live again tonight for anyone watching and talking about more on this later. I just could not come and talk to you about this for a hot second before going to do that. We'll go from there. We'll also have a full football episode out in the morning. We'll break that down too. The Houston Cougars are ranked, back to being ranked. It's a good time, as Kenneth says, to be a Houston Cougar. So hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live, bring you all the content we can each and every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Go Cougs, baby. Go freaking Cougs. Can't believe they won that freaking game.